In Service to Love, the relationship podcast that helps you create more love in the practical day-to-day, centering connection in the life of the modern family with your host, therapist, mother, and artist, Randé Dorn.
Oh, God. All right.
Okay.
So I'm laughing because, first of all, this is the In Service to Love podcast. I am your host, Randé Dorn, and I'm laughing because I have Melissa Shepard-Williams here. She is an amazing friend of mine. We were coworkers at CalArts. She is still there, helping all of those amazing artists to continue to do their work. Let me introduce you. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is the author of 2 books, because this woman is busy. She gets things done. So the first one is called Living Deliciously, and the second one is From Burnout to Bliss. Please order them. She is an amazing author and an amazing woman. I'll just keep saying amazing many, many times today. She is also a teacher at Pacific Oaks College. She is a consultant. She also does workshops, so she is available for hire. She is expensive, so please save your coins and make sure you hire the best. That's her, Melissa Shepard-Williams. I'm going to keep saying that. She also has her own podcast. It's called Transforming the World Through Reflections. It's also said in Spanish. I'm going to let her say it.
Transformando el mundo con reflexiones.
Beautiful. Do you hear that voice? That's why I asked her to come today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, gosh.
And for your sweet words.
Yes, yes. We haven't seen each other in about 2 years when I left CalArts in December of 2020. So we've definitely talked and chatted. And I've actually asked her for consultations here and there as well. But I asked her here to talk about being a therapist, to talk about being a therapist specifically for artists. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. I want her to tell you a little bit about her background. So please take it away.
First, I just want to say thank you. And it's so good to see you live.
Yes. Yay.
Finally, we could hug.
Yes, yes.
And, it's been quite a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a journey. And yes, I am still at CalArts. It's where I feel like a plant in the right soil. Surrounded by artists every day, all day. It's what I love.
Mm-hmm.
And still there, enjoying it.
Beautiful.
Enjoying it.
And so what made you decide to become a therapist? Like, was that like always your thing, or is this a transition into a different career?
Well, it's an interesting story. So, I'm from Panama, and growing up, it's very common in Panama that, extended family members are part of your daily life, and so in this case, I'm talking about my aunt, Carmen. She's a psychiatrist. So I constantly heard about her work. I got to go to her different places of work and see what she did. And I used to sneak her books a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Still do. I actually now steal them.
Oh.
every time I go to Panama. So that was part of it. And it really was fascinating to hear her talk about her work and to even see some of it. And then my mom is a Montessori teacher, and Maria Montessori, was a psychiatrist. So I learned from that work that they talked about so much. Of course, I was in a Montessori school, also at home. And so, to really be surrounded by these teachings was inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And I found that my friends frequently would, share with me what they were going through. And so I noticed a natural, inclination to be there to support people who are really in distress, and sometimes they just want someone to listen. And I just really felt like this is my calling, And I actually thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist.
Mm.
I was sure of it.
Yeah.
So when I came to the U.S. for college, I was a pre-med. No bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno. But, in the end, I realized that the part of my aunt's work that I enjoyed the most was the psychology part of it.
Right.
Yes, I liked all the other pre-med related classes, but that was not me. I even took the MCAT.
Wow. Yeah.
But it was not me.
Right.
And so I shifted from kinesiology to psychology, and it completely changed my undergrad experience. Instantly.
Right.
I was home.
Right. Why did it feel more like you? When you say that, like, psychiatry wasn't me, but psychology was, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that although, organic chem and all these other things were interesting to me, the part that I felt most connected to was learning about human behavior. It's fascinating to me.
Right.
To no end.
Yeah.
And so I realized I needed to make a shift. And that's how it happened.
I'm curious, like that because that listening deeply to yourself, like I knew, like, was it the unhappiness that you were feeling? Like, what was it that you were experiencing that you're like, this doesn't feel like a fit?
Yeah. I felt, let's go back to undergrad. I felt like, yes, these classes are interesting, and I had some challenges for sure with some of them, but I didn't have the excitement. I feel like the excitement has all the answers.
Yes.
As soon as I made the shift, it was such a different experience of school.
Right.
Completely different. And so that's how I knew.
Yeah.
The gut knows.
Yes.
The gut always knows.
There's going to be a lot of quotes in this today.
Yes.
From you.
Yeah.
Before I ask my second question, second question. I want to tell the listeners that Melissa and I, we shared a wall in terms of our offices. And so whenever her door was open and I had a break, I would go stand in her door frame and either dance around to try and like make her giggle just like that. Or I would like try and get some of these pearls of wisdom that she's dropping on us today. Because I'll say I'm a little bit of a wild child when it comes to therapy a little bit, and I'm a little impulsive, and so she, as you can hear, she's so grounded and so wise, and so when I wanted to throw in the towel or the client, she'd be like, "Well, let us think about this." So, I love her spirit for that. So the question I'm curious about is that taking this inspiration and taking this work, and then it took you to working specifically with artists. Like, what is unique about that experience for you?
That too was an interesting journey because during the years of collecting hours, as you can recall.
3,000 people.
Oh my
goodness!
Is
not for the faint of heart,
right? And in those intern years, some of the work that I did, we had freedom to create certain programs, especially during the summertime. And I felt like I was in many ways copying my mom, the kinds of things she would do in her classroom. Always involved artists. And so, I grew up with this. And some of the workshops would involve friends of mine who are artists or, other colleagues right there at the agency who had a life as artists. And then once I started private practice, and did more workshops, but now workshops that were not related to the work that happened in the agency, but just things that are closer to the work I wanted to explore more.
Right.
I would invite friends who are artists to help in the presentation of the workshop so that it's not just talk, but experiential. And that the artists would, drive the conversation also, but with their art practice. Same topic,
Right.
but, multiple angles to explore it. And I remember like it was yesterday, I told this one friend of mine, Maria, I would love to work with artists more frequently. Never knowing about CalArts or that I would, end up working with artists actually every day.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
And if I tell you the way I found CalArts, I mean, I almost fell off a chair when I found out about CalArts having an opening. So at the time, I was working at another agency, a family children-focused agency. And it happens to be near CalArts. And part of the work I was doing included visiting a group home. It was all teenagers, boys. And I had one-on-one sessions with this young man who was getting in a lot of trouble with the law for his artwork around the city, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And so in addition to the one-on-one work we were doing, he was going to the agency, but for group work related to drug use. And because I didn't know the neighborhood that well, I was consulting with the leader of that group about, places nearby that could really be a place to channel his life as an artist, his budding life as an artist. And so she said, yeah, there's a school near here. They have a program called CAP. And, faculty and students go to many different cities to teach kids different, art practices. And I thought, well, that's really cool. Let me look into it. At the same time, I was in the market for a new job.
Right.
And, that itself is a job.
Yes.
The search. And I'm of the belief that if it's not listed, I will create it. And so, I'm hearing different leads from different friends and everything. And there was a lead for a place actually right here in Burbank. And so I tend to prefer, learning about the person I'm going to reach out to before I do.
Right.
So I have some information about their areas of interest and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I'm researching so that I can reach out to this person. Of all the links I could have found with this person's name, there was also a listing of job openings in other places.
Yeah.
Which one do I see? CalArts.
Wow.
Only 24 hours after learning about its existence, but for another reason.
Right.
I almost fell off the chair. And back then it was fax.
Right.
This girl faxed her resume immediately. Immediately. And so, you have to be ready.
Yeah.
You have to be ready. So I faxed it. And a few days later, I received a call and, of course, all the, logistics for an interview. And I swear, Randé, I felt during the interview, like when you are on a date, a first date that you're excited about.
Yes.
And so I'm walking to the parking lot and I'm thinking to myself, there needs to be another date.
If you're not watching this, you can see her moving in her chair as if she's walking. And she sachets when she walks.
Yes. Yes.
She has the best walk.
Oh my gosh. So I was like, please let it happen because I found home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When I interviewed at CalArts, I already told the story that I tried to get jobs there for like 20 years. And then the part I didn't say is that when I saw the listing for this, that day I had gone to take a class. My family probably, well, my brother probably would be so happy about this, but I took a class on how to be a psychic, like a beginning class, like how to kind of open your mind to it. And then that night in bed, I was like, let me just look through, because I was also kind of looking for work.
Mm-hmm.
And then the listing was there. And it was the first time I saw a listing from CalArts that I actually qualified for, like all the things, right? Because they weren't looking, I wasn't licensed at the time, and they weren't looking for a license. They said just, I think within the year, whatever, but 3 years experience, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited. So yeah, similar. And Melissa was there when she was one of the people that I interviewed with. And I also always tell this story. I think very similarly, Maria Victoria had, taken me around and taken me to all the different ways, all the different people that I had to interview with. And at the end of it, she walked me back upstairs to the exit. And I looked at her and I was like, I feel like I need to give you a hug.
Such a Randé moment.
I know. First of all, of course, I don't always hug people that I interview with.
Oh my gosh.
This was the first time. But I felt so compelled. And then she was like, sure. And I hugged her. And then as I was walking away, not in a sachet like Melissa, but as I was walking away, I thought I either have this job or I completely lost it. Because who hugs somebody after an interview?
But it's when you lead with your heart. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's such a Randé moment. Being in the moment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. It was very random. But I was just like, because I kind of was like that feeling like, I don't know how to end this. And I kind of don't want, right? Like I just felt so connected to her. And it's not like she was with me all day long, but yeah, it was just like that moment where I'm like, just.
Again, it's the gut. The gut knows.
Gut, yes.
The gut knows.
Yes.
The gut knows. And that's how I felt.
Yeah.
When I was leaving my interview, I felt like, oh, wow, home. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine it still feels, I mean, like you've been there over 10 years now, right?
Actually, January will make it 15.
What?
Yes.
Well, yes, I was with you, I think, when they had the 10-year, right? You got the certificate or the award. Wow.
Yeah. 15.
Wow. You have done a lot of good work there.
Oh, thank you. I just love being there. It's where I've been the longest.
Beautiful. Like, so, I mean, what is it? I mean, you told me kind of about your desire and why art is showing up for you. Like in terms of working with artists, like what do you think is different about that, right? And I don't want to kind of make everybody else, quote unquote, like normal or like not, because we all have creativity, we all have the ability to be artists. But what is it about the experience of them for you that is so compelling or so interesting?
I think back at my first year, and certainly it coincides with the process of healing my burnout. And I am pretty sure that's one of the reasons why the first year and even first 2-3 years, I'd say, just to give a number, I felt like that was it was like a bomb for me, because I felt like I was returning to doing the work we were trained for, the way we were trained to do it.
Yes.
And I felt inspired. I felt inspired every day.
Yes.
I felt connected to me. And, of course, we have to document the work we do with every person we see in therapy. I found myself having time and space to also journal what was happening to me in those sessions.
Yes.
And so I felt like, okay, my life as a therapist is having like a new beginning. that feels more connected to why I became a therapist.
Hmm.
And so the artists, were very much a healing agent in my life.
Sure.
So I am sure that's part of what helps me to feel connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were having these delicious conversations.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to come across as minimizing other experiences of therapy.
Yeah.
With people who don't call themselves artists.
Right.
Because, like you said, we all, in our humanness, have creativity. It happens all the time, including when we're pessimistic. That's creative, just not helpful.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely. It's
So-
I call it a fantasy.
Right? So it's not to minimize those conversations, but there was a sauce.
Mm-hmm.
You know me and food.
Stir it up.
You know me and food. So there was a different sauce there. And the conversations we were having were really stretching me in the way I needed to be stretched.
Yes.
And the depth was so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to also be very observant of myself. I'm like, okay, this is not a session for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is theirs. But I do understand that there is a co-creating experience. So
Right.
So that's one of the perks of being a therapist. We get to grow too in the process of supporting someone's healing journey.
Yeah.
And for sure, that was the essence of what was happening. And then, of course, because I had been working with artists before CalArts,
Mm-hmm.
I was open to everything that it would involve.
Right. Right.
You know, and so what makes it unique? Maybe it's the depth of conversations. I really am bothered by that stereotype still around about the tortured artist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're talking about a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what happened to you, but there's something about who you are that informs how you experience that thing.
Right.
And I'm learning, and you know, this is open for revision, but you know, so far,
Yeah,
I am learning about how deeply an artist will experience the world around them and inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
feel like that's where the uniqueness may lie. It's about the depth. Perhaps because of this intense curiosity.
Yes.
You know, my experience of artists is that they operate in what if.
Mm.
What if? A lot of curiosity and
Yes.
you know, and intense desire to explore and then express what's being explored.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like jumping off of what you said, it's that for me, what I love about working with artists is their ability, I think, as you're saying, to kind of like be present and their ability, because they have such a connection to inspiration that they're
Yes.
always trying to like reconnect to the muse or listen to the thing or see or hear the thing. They're always kind of chasing a particular inspired idea. So I feel like they're just always, and they're available.
Yes.
Right. They're available for the conversation, you know, where, and sometimes, you know, in our work, we're first trying to just get someone to be open,
Right.
to know that those ideas, those messages, those inspirations are available.
Right.
Like you said, to see like, well, but what if it could be different, or what if it could look that way? And then, and so I find that artists are, like you said, are available to even that depth and level of conversation.
Yes.
I love working with artists because one of how they see the world, but how they see the world is also in how they talk about the world.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, if they've been spending all this time on a on a film or a photo or a painting, that when we're then talking about their feelings or expression, that comes into all of that visualizing comes into the conversation.
Yes.
And so then they actually have a capacity to, I think what you're saying, visualize something different, visualize something better, and I agree with you, this idea of like, you have to be tortured. I think where they get stuck is that I have to be tortured to make art. And it's like, maybe that's where that started, because art for many when they're young is the way for them to process. Right. So again, they've been really available to this idea of processing their emotions. Right. So it's like, yeah, it's like, maybe that's where you started, but for you to actually continue the process of making things, there needs to be a structure, which is what school is helping you to do. And the other part of that structure is that you have to have a life.
Yes.
Right. And a life that actually feels good to you, as opposed to creating a life that feels like torture so that I can make more art. To me, that's where there's like the fallacy of thought.
Yes.
Where it's like it's broken. The other thing I've been toying with is that artists aren't broke. I've decided to stop, right? That narrative.
Yes.
Because for you to be taking all these lessons for 10 years, for you to be accomplished at for you to have like paint and canvases and, and you can, go ahead and call in, write in, tell me I'm wrong. But the majority of, I'm going to say, quote unquote, successful artists are not broke. You just have put your resources into a particular direction and you can expand those resources so that you could pay your rent.
Right.
But, no, I'm totally getting off that train. One, that you need to be tortured, and two, that you're broke.
I'm with you because, and boy, does that bring up rethinking abundance, because like you said, okay, the resources that they have, they're channeling them in a certain direction with a clear purpose. So they're operating from I have.
Yeah.
So let's dismantle.
Yeah.
It's foolishness.
It is. And I think part of it is again, this idea of maybe the cycle of like, well, what does it mean if I'm successful as an artist or a creative or an art maker? And maybe my friends, my peers haven't quite gotten there yet. Or again, this idea of like, maybe I can torture myself when I'm successful by being broke, right? So I can make something, and it's like, wow, that feast and famine. And it's like, you don't have to live like that.
No. And then another thing is, what do you call success? Do we all have to have the same idea of it? And that's been such an interesting conversation too.
Yeah. What are you finding when you have those particular conversations around success?
I have found some people who are still suffering through these stereotypes that were, shared with them, and they bought into, and we have to try to walk out of, so that you can release that unnecessary tension. Tension is part of life, part of growing. So let's focus on the tensions that are useful. That one's not.
Right.
That's not.
No.
So let's notice what's a lie and what is true.
Yeah.
And, adios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think artists are typically kind of coming, or creatives are coming to you for? Like, what is it that's driving them to therapy? That's another moment of dismantling stereotypes, because so frequently people would think, well, they're so different. They're human beings. Yeah.
They have relationship conflicts like everybody else, and relationship conflicts with themselves like everybody else.
Yes.
It's just that. Well, let me walk that back. It may be that because of the way they perceive the world around them and inside of them, that adds a different layer to how they navigate these conflicts. That might be where the difference is. but they're human conflicts.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Well, tell me more about what you think about when you said they might navigate relationships differently or conflicts differently.
Well, the idea that, like we were talking about how deeply someone who's an artist may be reflecting on something, whether it's because they're creating work or not, just living, just existing, in the midst of a situation and taking it in and doing so in a really deeply detailed way.
Yeah.
Why would that not show up in their relationships? It's who they are.
Right.
It's who they are. And so it's true whether they're in relationship with another artist or not.
Right. 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 I typically secretly, when I'm talking to artists about their relationships, I usually encourage them not to be in a relationship with another artist.
Uh-huh. You're like, have you dated other folks?
Right. Have you considered?
Yeah.
Like I'll share that idea of, there needs to be someone on the ground. If you're the balloon and there's the string, right? There needs to be someone on the ground holding the string. So
are you holding the string?
No,
how many strings are you holding?
I've come to realize I'm the balloon. But I look like I'm the person holding the string, which is why it ends up being a problem. Because like
I love it.
Part of the thing is that I find that, right, like artists have a particular life cycle, right, or they have I'm doing a wave if you can't see me. This ebb and flow of creating art and then coming down from the art, personal life, and then going back into the roller coaster of creating the art, right, and then coming back from the art. And what can be an easier way to navigate is if you have the other person who is always on the ground, holding life down, so that you can pop in and visit and then go do your art and then come back and visit. Right. Because when you're following the muse, like I get it. I see it all the time, right? Like they just want to like take off. They're like in creation mode. Gone. Right. And so if you have two artists who are gone at the same time, it makes it.
Who's holding down the fort?
Right. Who's holding down the fort? Who's taking care of the kids? Who's paying the bills? Right. And so, like if you can find someone who can counterbalance that, or you just have to be a lot more creative in having two people who are bouncing back and forth. I don't love being the one on the ground. Personally, Randé, I don't like being the one on the ground.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And so, again, I keep saying in every podcast, I'm single. I'm looking for someone to hold the string.
Gives the work to somebody else. Oh my gosh.
But I can, as a mother, as a therapist, like in these different roles, I can do it. We can all do it.
Yeah.
And so as artists, you can do it.
Yes.
But there are going to be moments when you want to kind of like take off or, disappear.
Yeah.
And so knowing that there is someone who's counterbalancing that, right? And so two artists can absolutely do it in a beautiful way. It's just knowing how do we structure it so that I'm holding it down while you're off, so we're not off at the same time. And you'll see that from like celebrity couples who'll talk about that, right? Like we never try and be apart for too long. We don't take gigs at the same time, blah, blah, blah. But I think sometimes for young artists, they haven't learned to say no to things yet, right? I talk to clients about this, the difference between good and great, right? And being able to learn how to say no to good so that you can have great. And sometimes great is the relationship, not the project. Right. And learning the difference. And when I say between good and great is that when we all get better and better at ourselves, at our roles in life, that we're not choosing between the thing in the gutter and then the thing on the top of the mountain, the crown, right? Like we're choosing between the thing on the mountain and the thing maybe 5 feet below that.
Yeah.
And that's when it starts to get hard to tell the difference, because the variation gets smaller and smaller as we get better and better at what we're doing. But, personal life relationships, kids, your dog, whatever, like those are also things, great things to choose.
I love all of that. I have all these images while you're describing it. And it's really important to let this be a practice. How do what word do I want to use? Economize my yeses. Or let me rephrase that. What's the criteria for my yeses? So that they're well thought out. And if, back to the whole impulsive nature, maybe I need to, in some areas of my life, allow the impulsivity. And in other areas, cultivate the let us pause.
Yes.
Let us pause. Am I being a balloon right now? Or do I need to hold that string?
Yeah.
It's a dance, and it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
It's not going to be perfect when your nature is to be exploring, and I'm curious, and what if this, what if that? It's a challenge.
Yeah.
And so the question is, are you up for the challenge?
Ooh.
So that you can squeeze the juices out of every area of your life, not only the art making area of your life.
Right.
Yeah. So what are you up to?
Yeah.
What challenges are you open to in the interest of not only your relationship with art making, but your relationship with the people in your life?
Yes.
These are the talks that happen.
Right. And how do you, given what you just said, like, how do you choose between your yeses, your nos, and your pause? Like, I'm sure some of it might be like that gut check again.
Yes.
But yeah, like what's your go-to in terms of making those decisions?
So the funny part is I'm saying this while at the same time remembering my husband talking about how I have 4 burners and 6 spots. He loves to say that.
Yes.
I
would agree with that assessment.
I love projects. I love projects. It's exciting to me to have projects. And I can be gone mentally imagining my projects.
Yes.
And so for sure in our relationship, it's been really important to really talk about the yeses.
Right.
Why is that a yes? How will it impact our schedule? Our rhythm, our little dance? How will it impact it?
Yeah. Does he ask you these questions, or like?
We do talk about it.
Okay.
Sometimes I talk to myself, but I'm an only child. I have some chats with Melissa boy. Woo! But and I have to say, there have been times where I have struggled with, okay, this is a no, because I'm so excited. I need to postpone this yes, because I'll be flooded.
Right.
So I tend to think of the criteria for yes, regardless of the topic. Okay, is this yes going to honor not only my wellness, but that of someone else's? So I try that to be the filter during decision making. Yeah. Is this no a yes to my wellness and also yours?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if I say yes to everything, then I'm going to inconsistently give you the best version of me. I mean, and we've heard about this a lot. I'm not revealing anything new. If we are well, then we can give better.
Yes.
More deliciously.
Yes. Yes.
So I think really strengthening our practice of pausing to question, what are the implications of this yes?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think, to your point about partnership, what I find, like, first of all, most of the people that come to me are also like mostly coming because of a relationship crisis. And part of that crisis is one of them is saying, I'm not being considered. Right. So I'm not being considered in your decisions around your yes. Right. And it could be
The
yes.
balloon thing and the string.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. I'm here. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and what that would look like on a day-to-day practice, as you're saying, to consider the environment, right? That, that I think the other end of all of that creativity, I think partly what maybe we're both pointing out is that we can be so hyper-focused. We're so in the tunnel of something that I don't even consider eating, right? So there's things that I don't consider eating, like what? All those 5 hours, those 10 hours went by. I don't consider sleeping. I don't consider. So how am I then going to consider another person? Again, my kids or my dog or my whatever. This is an aside. Some lady stopped me on the street and I was like, do you know where a pet store is? And I was like... No, and I was like, I have a few minutes, so I'm going to stop. And because she didn't even have her phone, she was just literally wandering on like in a direction as if she was going somewhere. And then I realized she wasn't going anywhere. She didn't know where she was going. And so I was like, let me pull out my phone. I was like, no, there's not a Petco nearby. And then I said, well, is this for a dog or a cat? And she's like, no, it's a turtle. What? You are wandering? My neighbor sent me out to go find food for their neighbor's turtle.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. So I was like, there is no turtle place nearby for food. And I was like, well, let me look up what turtles eat. So, and a side note, turtles can eat cooked chicken, beef, and turkey is what I found. Out on the streets of Burbank.
Oh my goodness.
But this lady was like just heading in a direction away from all the stores because the mall was in the opposite direction. I was like,
where are you going?
What is happening to my life? That this is what's... So yes, in considering our people.
Oh my goodness.
When we're in the tunnel, when we're in that hyper-focus as an artist. And maybe that's a question. It's like, how do you get yourself to widen the scope of that tunnel?
Right.
What do you tell people?
Yes.
Who are like, I want this loved one, but I also want to finish this project. And I don't feel like I can have both. What's your advice?
I feel it always revolves around the pause. To flirt with a pause.
Flirting.
Flirt with the pause. Try to develop an intimate relationship with the pause because you get a wider view of things. Yeah. And it's something that works also in your art making practice.
Yes.
A bigger picture may support your exploration. Well, it also may support your life outside of art making. For sure, it supports your ability to catch what's happening inside of you in more detail. After all, that's your jam.
Yes.
Capturing detail.
Yes.
So that tends to be an entry point. This is really aligned with something you already are passionate about. Detail.
Right.
The pause will allow you to catch more of it. And not only in relation to yourself, but other people, to notice the gestures, the facial expressions of people in your life when you make certain decisions. For example.
Right.
I'm thinking of people who, for whatever reasons, they occasionally live apart. And the person that's all in the air, like you said, like the balloon, frequently gets a strong reality check about what it's like to be holding the string when the string holder is absent.
Right.
Quite a revelation.
Yeah.
And that can enrich their relationship because now they have a better understanding of what it's like to be in each other's shoes. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So it's so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that
I love your metaphor.
Yeah, I know. We're like using it this whole...
Let me tell you something. I'm going to plagiarize.
I love it. Please do. Oh, God.
I will be.
I want to like slam my hand on the table because that's normally how I laugh, but I'm trying to be respectful to the space. Oh, God.
Oh.
Like what came to mind when you said pause also to me is rest, right? Like artists don't, I think everything you're saying, like being able to let the details see the people that are in your life, right? Because some of my conversations will be about like, I just finished something and I got to get to the next thing, right? Because that saying, you're only as good as your last thing. And so I can never be not in something, you know? And it's like, well, it's just because you don't have a richer personal life. If you had a richer personal life, you could share about that too.
Right.
Right? Like in our chit chats of like, what are you up to? And it's like, the next project. But it's like, it's also could be like, I went on this lovely trip.
Yeah.
I found this new pastry shop.
Yeah.
I talked to someone about turtles today.
Yeah.
Like
not to mention it will enrich your art making.
Yes.
Inspiration. If you let yourself have space for other experiences, your artwork, your play in the arts is going to be more delicious.
Right.
More information.
Right.
More information. You're feeding yourself, you know, and that's another thing that comes up in conversations frequently. You know, if you are so dedicated to nourishing your mental space, your creative space, through curiosity, then, you know, why not cultivate the same kind of nourishing in your relationships?
Right.
You know, in your time alone that is not art making.
Yeah.
In your time with other people. Because all of these, they're mingling. They're not such... what's the word, Randé? Oh my gosh. It's not that compartmentalized. These things are all mingling.
Yeah. Like all the parts of your life.
Yeah, they're married, they're mingling.
Yeah, merged, they're overlapping.
Yes. So,
it's a stew.
Yeah, it's a stew. So like I'm thinking right now of a conversation I had with someone who feels like, you know, I want to be a little more engaged with this person I'm dating. But, you know, I find myself wondering mentally. And so we had a really, really interesting conversation about curiosity. You know, how can you nourish your curiosity about that person?
Yes.
How might that support your intention?
Right.
Because, I mean, you could have a million intentions, but if you have no plan to match them to, who cares?
Right.
So if you have the intention of becoming more engaged in this relationship, so what's your plan to develop more curiosity? What's your plan?
Yeah.
So our conversation was entirely about the role of curiosity in his life.
Oh, beautiful.
It was really, really, wow. I so enjoyed it.
Yes.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yes. I'm jumping off of what you just said. It's like when I talk to artists about dating, it's the two things. I always say two things and then usually I only talk about one. Sorry, people. 10 things. And then
Oh gosh. Okay. I can't wait to hear
Oh
it.
God, pause for laughter. But first I tell them is that if you're on that first date, like people love artists, creative people.
Yes.
Right? Because they're in their divine, they're in their groundedness, they're in their self, right? They're in their bodies. You're like, ooh. And so from
Yes.
connection,
Yes.
I want to be in that. I want to be, because you're connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to plug into the bigger picture. So I want to plug into you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, of course you're going to draw attention.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're dating someone or when you're on a first date, it's like, I'm drawn to you because of connection, but that's not what's going to keep me there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't care that you worked with such and such. Like, they're cute stories, right? Oh, I was on this film, or I have an Oscar.
Right.
Or I did that thing. When I'm on a date with you, I'm looking for where I plug into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you at work is not where I plug in.
Exactly.
Right. And so
Exactly.
it's like you being creative was what going to draw someone, but only because your creativity is part of your deeper connection to self.
Yes.
And so when you're in that space of alignment, that's the word I'm looking for. When you're in that space of alignment, you're going to draw people, but your alignment won't keep me there.
Mm-hmm.
It is that work that you're talking about of co-creating a separate relationship, you, me, and then us. So, I'm looking on that date for the us. How do I, and if you're only talking about work, then I'm like, oh, there is no us because there's no place for me to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
There's no brunch. There's no events.
Where are we?
There's no cuddling. There's no
No.
So it's like, I'm not trying to watch you work. Like, I'm not trying to, here's the thing. Let's call this point number 2. I'm not trying to be your fan.
Right.
If I'm trying to date you or be in a relationship to you, I'm not trying to be your fan. That is boring. Artists, creative people, stop. Right? I'm not trying to be a fan of yours and just like always be looking up and trying to like, again, I can hold the string, but not just so that I'm a balloon. Sometimes I want to pull the string down.
Right.
I want to hold that.
I wish people could see your face right now. I want to hold the balloon.
I want to draw a happy face on it and have it gaze at me.
Yes. I mean,
God.
we're laughing, but this is like water for soup.
Mm-hmm.
We need to feel witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is, talking about plagiarizing. Right now, I'm plagiarizing a friend that you and I have in common, Makisha Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence.
Yes.
So wise,
yes,
wise,
absolutely.
so wise. She one day said this in such a way that I have shared it with so many people in conversation. We all need to be witnessed. We need our lives to be witnessed.
Yes.
And so holding this balloon and cuddling it and drawing a happy face on it and everything, that's that.
Yeah.
And having it gaze back.
Yes.
It's that.
Yes.
We need it. It's not optional. Not to be confused with, I want to be the center of attention at all times.
Right.
This is pure human need. And as therapists, we are constantly talking and thinking about it. An infant, the experience of an infant so needs to include feeling seen.
Yes.
And we part from there. And whatever didn't happen then walks with you into adulthood. And then you want all the spotlights at all times.
Right.
And nothing fills you.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how to fill yourself so that you can witness somebody else.
Right.
So we do want to be, holding the balloon and have the balloon, do the googly eye thing. And, we need the two-way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We need it.
Yeah. And I think partly, again, going back to the artist and the fan thing is that, having someone who is that in their alignment gaze at us. Again, I think that's also the draw of like wanting someone who is creative or who's famous or it's like, oh, you're in your You're in your power, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when we're in our alignment, we're in our power. And from that place of power, I want your gaze on me.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Witnessing.
Yes.
But partly I think the problem is that like that gaze won't give you power, right? It's just allows for you to be validated enough to say, oh, I exist.
I exist.
And so therefore I can kind of step in, and that's where that co-creating, that's where that like creating of the relationship and the back and forth. Because right, creatives, especially performing creatives, but I mean like when you're looking, they like to think of their product as them. And again, to me that's a fallacy as well. But in terms of performing creatives, that's just their way of getting that gaze, as you're saying, and to be witnessed. And it's a really beautiful opportunity, to be witnessed, but it can't be the only.
It cannot be.
Right. And that's when we go into that like chasing of, and I think what you're saying, it's like the pause and the rest of like, but what if this isn't your only way?
Right.
Right. And what if you could get this gaze and this attention from your beloved, from the people who actually want to give you their gaze, if you would only turn to them.
Yes.
Right. And allow for that relationship. And the other thing, it's like, especially when art sometimes comes from a place of trauma, at least as a beginning, that we're creating all this stuff because we want attention, because we want love. And so it's like you've surrounded yourself with all these people who actually love you. Why aren't you taking advantage of that? Why are you still lost in your studio somewhere when you know you're tired, when you know you've done enough, when or even when you can't figure it out, when you're like in this place of like loss?
Yeah.
Why aren't you letting yourself have the thing that you've also created in your personal life?
Yes.
Right? Like you have all these beautiful people who want to be with you, and yet you're still doing these 15-hour days. You're still trying to amass this money or, get to the next level. When you did all that to have this, and now you're ignoring this, which in some ways I believe really has priority, should have priority.
Should have. Yeah. Yeah. I as I was listening to you, I heard so many rich layers of the witnessing experience, because I love when you were talking about being in your power when you're aligned. That's something that we can really connect with during those pauses.
Yes.
During those pauses that are to look inside and look inside deeply. When you see your soul, you can't unsee that. When you see it and are filled by that, your experience of someone's gaze is very different from someone who is in angst to be seen.
Ooh, yeah.
It's a peaceful experience of having that reciprocity in gazing.
Yes.
Because you have seen yourself. You have seen yourself deeply. You live from that place, not only in your art making, but in every area of your life.
Right.
And so to experience that gaze has a different quality when you are in that place of alignment.
Yeah.
It's different from like when you were talking about the chase. If you're in this chase, you're going to be the one spending 15 hours in this studio, even when your brain is saying, your soul is saying, stop, walk away, come back. And then there's also the narratives of overworking.
Right.
Burnout is my angle.
Yes.
The overworking narratives that have been promoted in certain circles of art making, that you must not rest. Sleeping is dishonorable, which is Boulder Dash.
Right.
But those things also influence the chaser. But someone that is really, practicing going inside from a place of I want to discover more of my soul. that person, I suspect, is less likely to fall prey to the narrative that says you have to work till you drop.
Right.
That person is more likely to create space for mutual witnessing in other areas,
Mm-hmm.
in partnership, in parenthood, in, whatever hat you're wearing in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different kind of mutual witnessing.
Yeah. Well, there's something what came to me was there's a vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
in it, right? Because I'm allowing myself to be witnessed when I haven't done anything, or when I haven't done anything good,
Right.
or well,
Right.
right? When I'm like mid project or post project, and I'm like
Or
just
no
a human,
project.
or no project, I'm just a human being.
Yes.
And now I have to be vulnerable and allow myself to be witnessed and loved and cared for when the things I've been kind of keeping close to me, that's been propping me up as like worthy of love, is now not around. And now I'm kind of naked, and you have to choose to witness and love me when I'm not creating anything.
I am not my work. I'm not my awards. I am not my latest, I don't know, painting.
Yeah. You're not. I mean, like, I love the idea of being an artist and creative, but that's what you do. Right. And in some ways we take a lot because we have to brand ourselves. It's like we can put a lot of energy in becoming our own kind of art piece. But to me, even as a performer, it's like, if the thing can exist outside of you, if that can be destroyed and you're alive, or you're destroyed and it's alive, then you're not the same thing.
Right.
Right. So it's like, you're not your art.
Right.
Like you are the source of it. You are the producer of it. You are the process of it.
Yeah.
But you ain't it.
You ain't it. It's an expression of things that live inside of you.
Yeah. It's also an expression of your past.
Right.
Right. Because I saw something where, like on the, I don't know, Instagram or something, where someone says every photo of you is a photo of your past self, or a photo of your, And I was like, ooh, yes. Or, oh no, it said every photo is a picture of your younger self.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, oh. So yeah, like everything that you make is an expression of your past, and so we want to be love. The experience of love, or even the experience of witnessing, is always present.
Yes.
It's not past, it's not future, it's now.
And to continue belaboring the topic of pausing, that's how you're connected to the present. Pausing. Pausing.
Yeah.
And also it's essential in conversations in therapy, because like you said, for many people, their art making began because of trauma, as a way of surviving trauma. It served as a lifeline. So frequently I've had conversations with colleagues about, wow, this student made it to CalArts with all the pain that they've experienced. They made it. They're alive. Their art making supported that process.
Right.
And so here we are wanting to support them in transforming art making for survival into art making as an expression of thriving. Because maybe it started as survival.
Right.
Can it be something else? Or do you want it to be something else? Are you open to that? What might that look like?
Right.
What might it feel like?
Yeah.
Might you discover areas of your life that are calling for your attention, so that you know what it's like to do more than survive. You know?
Yeah. Well, because I think part of transforming, especially going to like an art college like that, is one, you end up with a bunch of other people who are just as good or better, which can be a very new experience. And then you start to look at this as, is this my career? Is this what I want to do for quote unquote work? And therefore, if it's not the thing that is just helping me to live, and now it's moving into the category of like consistent, constant
Right.
thriving, right? Because
Right.
work hopefully is thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Then now I have to cultivate, like you're saying, like the experience of everything else, right? Like going back to that idea, it's like art was my balloon in some ways. It was helping me kind of float. It was helping me kind of navigate. But now I have to ground it in reality too, right? If I really want it to be something that's lifelong. Right. And so it's like, yeah, then it has to be that kind of 30, 40-hour work week. I have to leave it and go home. I have to close the office. I have to, pay bills and have a weekend and spend time with people. And so I think what you're saying is like, it's transforming the narrative, right? And even the identity of what art is. So it's not my survival now. It's the thing that I'm thriving and it's the thing that's just part of the pie of who I am or what I do.
And because in therapy, we're so inviting someone to be in the present moment, pausing, whatever amount of throbbing that prompted the art making as a survival mechanism, will become a new version of throbbing. One where you may let yourself notice certain nuances of the throbbing that call for your attention and that become revealed to you, for example, in an acting scene where something happens that you did not expect. For example, in a voice class where because the breath is everything, you discover something that's frightening that you had not looked at, consciously or unconsciously, but here it is. Here it is. So many opportunities are in that pause and learning to be with the pause in a new way.
Right.
The body does everything it can to bring us to this moment. And it's also carrying all these files of every experience we've had, pleasurable as well as painful. And in the art making, they become revealed.
Right.
And if you're an artist who also is in therapy, but some revealing will happen. So it's wow, it's such an interesting experience, and I'm heartened by the courage. I feel like it takes courage to be an artist.
Yes.
It takes courage to be an artist, and it's the kind of courage that needs to be nourished to support someone in allowing that courage to manifest in other areas.
Ooh, yes.
For the witnessing, for the rich witnessing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always encouraging artists to be, just as creative in their personal life. It's just that, you may not put your attention there, but imagine if you put that creative attention into your relationship or into your personal life into another hobby, what you could create there. It's just that you haven't, and so you're back to being an amateur, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit what you're saying in terms of that courage, it's like that idea of, as Brene Brown says, like being in the arena. It's like artists just go to the arena all the time. Right? Because we all, and you're a creative, you're a writer, like it's like your husband does music, like there's creativity all around us, right? And whenever I'm like, I have a dance or I have something I want to write, it's never what's in my head, right? And so the courage is that I'm and I don't want to, I'm going to say chasing, but I don't mean it in the same way. I'm seeking the image, the film, the painting, the thing that's in my head, knowing I will never achieve it, right? So embedded in my courage is always a bit of failure, and reconciling that what my humanity can create is not going to quite match what the divine has in store. Right. And so the divine might give me this image of a movement or something, and the humanity that's around me is like, no.
Yes.
That's not happening. Like, I don't have the money to do that. The lake can't get up that high, whatever. Right. And so it's reconciling with that relationship with the divine and reconciling with my relationship with art making. And I imagine that's what artists are always up against.
Yeah.
Right? The gap.
Yes.
And how big that gap is between what's in my head and what I can create. And I think maybe again, lack of a better word, chase is like, how small can I make that gap? And sometimes the reconciling is that, like, I'm going to show a visual, but like my hands are close-ish together. And then I like part of, I don't know what the word is, a humanness is saying, like, I have to leave this gap open. Part of me being in relationship to my art is saying there will always be a gap. And I have to recognize the moment when I have to stop closing it. I'm sure there's a more eloquent way to say it. And one day it'll be in a book or something.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
But right, like, we're always playing with that gap. And being able to leave that gap to go to the gap that's in our relationship, the gap that's in, whatever, my health, or the gap that's in, and trying to figure out, all right, let me attend to, and let me have the courage, knowing there may always be a little bit of a gap, but the courage is saying, I'm still willing to show up for it, and I think artists just always, they do that so beautifully. They have a willingness. I mean, such risk taking, boldness. And I feel like one of the things that helps in having conversations with artists is to invite them to notice moments of risk, even ones that they may not have thought of as a risk, but it was a risk, and then let that be a launching pad, if you will, for these other risks. To, for example, choose to not be in the studio 15 hours. What might happen if you take that risk? Right.
Are you curious?
Right.
Appealing to the wisdom that's embedded in their art making.
Right.
And how do you infuse other parts of your life with that wisdom?
Yeah.
It's such an interesting conversation.
Right. And I think that goes back to them being the artist or the person and not the product. If I'm the person that creates the process, I can create that somewhere else.
Right.
But if I'm only tied to what I do, then I don't have that vision, right? That I can transfer all of that wisdom to another product. It's like, all right, well, let's just think about your relationship as a product. Or whatever it is, right? That you need to turn your attention to.
Yeah.
And again, you're turning your attention to it because you say you want it. Right? Like, there's artists who just love to be solo people out in the world making their thing in the desert. Great. Like, do that, right? Like, we're working with people who have shown up because they're saying, I feel there's a problem.
Yeah.
Something is missing. Something I'm not finding. Yeah. It's not tangible. And I think that curiosity that you're talking about, I'm thinking about like love languages as well, right? And this idea of like, again, creative people can be so practiced in a particular thing, right? If I'm practiced, as a painter, maybe I'm not, or even as a dancer, I may not be as practiced in my words, right? Or someone who is a wordsmith and a very different, actor, writer, whatever, may not be so practiced physically. And so what does it mean for me to offer touch when mostly I offer words, but my partner is saying, I need you to touch me more. Or, again, I've been witnessed as this physical moving being, but my partner's like, that's beautiful. And you could tell me how great I am. And it's like, I could dance it. And it's like, no. tired of you dancing how much you love me.
Right? Oh
I
my
need you to show
gosh.
me something, right? And so,
Yeah.
moving, like you're saying, being curious and learning how to move between those different
Yeah.
mediums of love.
Yeah. I hear you talking about dance, and of course, you and I've talked about your life as a dancer, and
Mhm.
I'm thinking of other dancers talk about how dancing allowed them the space to say certain things that in other spaces of their lives they didn't feel free
Yes.
to say. And so we together
Mhm.
explore ways of moving that moving
Mhm.
moving that expression
Mhm.
of their inner world into other spaces.
Yeah.
If being verbal about it is the challenge, what can we do together? What can we co-create so that you tap into your ability to voice it as well?
Right.
It's been interesting.
Mhm.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
bet. I know it was funny for me, like when I was at CalArts, that you got most of the dancers. Knowing that I had a dance background, I got most of the theater department, most of the actors. So,
Mhm.
and every once in a while I worked with like a couple of dancers. They didn't stay.
That's so interesting.
It's so interesting. So I can't say why or why not.
Mhm.
But I love the fact that obviously they gravitated towards you.
Mhm.
And maybe it's because in this medium of talking,
Mhm.
working as a therapist, that probably all y'all can tell I'm very expressive. I'm wordy, I'm vocal, I'm expressive. So maybe if I was going to make something up, I think I matched actors a lot more in the room, in the way that I express myself, right? Because just like we're doing today, like as a therapist, I'm super talkative, like I'm not just kind of sitting and nodding. I don't imagine that you are either.
No.
No, and so it was there. So I really loved those like kind of big
Yes.
personalities. I think I drew them in because I found this voice that I have now as a therapist. I didn't find it as a dancer because I was quite nervous when I started as a therapist. And even as a dancer, I was always like, the critique was always in the back of the class. Like it took me years to actually go to the front. They're like, you made it. You made it. You made it. Because there was a lot of shyness around that. There was a lot of actually insecurity around my work as a dancer. And I think that's probably why I segued into choreographing, because that was a way of sharing like exactly what you're saying, what was going on in my life.
Yeah.
Made a dance about marriage, around children, around like whatever, Storytelling. And so when I finally got in the room with someone as a therapist, I was like, oh crap. Like, like I have to show up, right? It required a level of boldness that maybe I had as a choreographer, but I didn't have in my voice as a person. And so being a therapist really cultivated this version of me. And then this version of me, I think, matches those kind of like more theatrical personalities, and probably in some ways less matches my version of myself as a dance maker. Interesting enough. But.
Isn't it beautiful how being a therapist offers so many possibilities in our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So many discoveries. So many discoveries. I'm so thankful that I listened to my gut.
Yes, I am too.
Because this is me.
Yeah, we wouldn't have met if you hadn't listened.
Right?
You wouldn't have had all this in your life.
Right? Indeed.
It's all about me. Let's turn this all about me.
No accidents. No accidents. I think this is one of the perks of being a therapist.
Mm.
We there's no way of escaping
Yeah.
going deeper into ourselves.
Oh, yes.
There's no way of escaping it.
Yeah.
And it takes courage.
Mm-hmm.
It takes courage, and we embrace it. And for that, I'm really proud of us.
Yes. Yes.
This work is not for the faint of heart.
No.
And I feel like it really immerses us in being authentic,
Mm-hmm.
living intensely, and being present. If I'm inviting someone to be present, I need to be present.
Right.
So I constantly am practicing, constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
Constantly.
This is what I loved about working there in particular, and what my takeaway was.
Mm-hmm.
I call it like I see Northern Exposure, that TV show. You and I might know it, but it was like so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's like it's being a therapist in a small town.
Yes.
Where you have to practice with everybody, right? So if you're the only therapist and there's, in a small place, then you also have to, you have to work with the uncle and, the sister and the person at the grocery store and the dentist. Right. And then you all end up at that same Christmas party awkwardly. Yes. Right? So you have to be in community with them. Mm-hmm. And you have to hold a certain level, obviously, of confidence in that work. But you get to then see all of the players and all the pieces. So working on campus, like you and I would go to lunch and we'd see those same clients who are like, oh my God, I don't have any friends, sitting at a table with like 10 other people laughing. Right? Or we would go see their art, so they would be talking about what they were like trying to move through them. Mm-hmm. And then we got to see like the end result, and we got to see what it meant to them and what was showing up. So to be able to have all of that environmental information
in real time
was so helpful, know. And I when I'm supervising other clinicians, like I really encourage that idea of deepening the relationship with your clients, this idea of just kind of like sitting back, like you said, and not investigating ourselves or not doing the work, but also not being in relationship, right? It's like, many of the stories I've told here or we'll end up telling, my clients know. They know who I am. Some of them have met my children. Like I've gone to some of their events in person, and and there's a lot of taboos in quotes around doing stuff like that as a therapist. It's not illegal, because if I lived in a small town, I could do it. So I just pretend.
You're not pretending.
I take liberties, but to me, that's good therapy.
I agree.
And that's why I'm, like one, I wanted to talk to you specifically, but also because I'm really choosy the kind of therapist that I recommend, because I only want to recommend therapists who are doing this type of deep, vulnerable, messy work. Because if we're doing this kind of work where me, what's going on. My clients knew when I was getting divorced. They knew what was going on with me. It wasn't a therapy session for me.
Right. But it's an art. Self-disclosure in therapy.
Yes.
Our self-disclosure in therapy is an art.
Absolutely.
When I talk to my students about self-disclosure and, what in the earlier history of therapy was seen as wrong and, unacceptable and boundary breaking. There are things that certainly are inappropriate.
Yes.
To say the least. And yet we need to be participating as human beings. I mean, there's no other way to participate.
Right.
That's what we are.
Right.
We bring all of ourselves into the room. It doesn't matter how many theories you've read, practiced, workshops, trainings. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's all filtering through who I am.
Yes.
I'm the one showing up. So there's that. And then there is the art of self-disclosure, where you're more deliberate about what you share regarding your personal life.
Absolutely.
And it takes practice. It can be a clumsy experience early on if you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. You know, it's not about making the session about me.
Right.
It's intentional. There's a clear purpose in what I'm disclosing and also when I disclose it.
Yes.
It's an art. And it's an important aspect of the relationship because it's a relationship.
Right.
It's a relationship. Why are we pretending that, you know, I'm here as the therapist sitting hearing about your relationships? We have a relationship.
Right.
We're in this space together. I don't want to say room because it doesn't have to be a room.
Right.
It could be outdoors.
Yes.
I digress. But anyway, you know, the idea that it's a relationship.
Yes.
And so if there are some things that I can teach, because to be a therapist also includes the part of us that is that speaks to our teaching nature.
Yes.
Then there are things in my self-disclosure that are intentionally to teach you something.
Yes.
Or invite you to reflect on something.
Yes.
You know? If it happens in the classroom when I meet with my students who are training to become therapists, why would it not happen in therapy?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and so I'm very choosy about what I say, why, and when.
Yeah. And I'm glad you put it that way. And I think it's important because one, yeah, it can get messy if it's not
well thought out.
Right. And I think it also just it speaks to how brilliant therapists can be. And how much work it takes, right? Because there's a lot of people, right, who'll be like, oh, I thought about being a therapist. So, I'm kind of a therapist in this job. Can I smile at the camera and be like,
no.
Make a face?
No.
Well, I mean, right? 3,000 hours plus 4 or 5 years of schooling, plus all the additional blah, blah, blah. And that does not include, like you said, like the internal work of being alone in a space with someone and having to be completely present and vulnerable as I ask for someone else to be completely present and vulnerable.
Yes.
And it's very different than other spaces where advice might be given or space holding might be happening. I don't want to degrade the work that other people are doing in other areas, but I do want to elevate the work that good therapists do. And I'm being intentional with my words when I say good therapists.
Yes.
Because there can be therapists are still working towards that. You know, there's always room for improvement. And I think sometimes therapists get into therapy for the wrong reasons.
Agreed.
You know, but there's so much good work and there's so many good therapists out there, even as I say that. And so, you know, you just really clarifying how much thought goes into this work in the moment. And I'll add on how much thought goes into outside of the moment.
Yes.
How often we're carrying our clients with us into the grocery store, into the drive, trying to figure out what can I say differently? How can I express this in a new way? How can I bring up this? You know, then of course they go see something on TikTok and they're like, I got the most brilliant information. And you're like, the thing I've been saying for a year, but okay. I will hold that because I want you to have it either way, right? Whether it comes from me or it clicks through social media. I want you to have it, you know?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yes. Our time is coming to a close.
This has been great.
It's been so great. And I'm glad we segued into good therapy because, again, you are one of my heroes.
Oh,
in
likewise.
terms of this work. Oh, thank you.
I love what I perceive to be your bravery. You know, to just be in your freedom. I love that.
Yes. I'm trying. It has been a new thing I've taken on the last couple of years, for sure. when I left CalArts,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I think as you're saying, doing that work,
Mm-hmm.
I think we only have to be a few steps ahead of our clients, right? In general. If we can be more, great, but we really have to be a few.
Yeah.
And when I decided to leave, it really was heartbreaking. And I had to tell my clients, like, look, I can't do this work and be honest with you and not listen to my gut, right? That's telling me to do the next thing.
Yes.
Do I miss it all the time? Yes. I loved being on that campus,
Yes.
right? I still miss being in that world, and
Yes.
it's a fantasy of mine too sometimes. But at the same time, it's like I can't ask you to be vulnerable. I can't ask you to risk if I'm not doing the same, right?
Amen.
And that's part of our relationship with each other. So,
Yes.
how do people find your good work? You mention the books again. Where can we find them? And then how do we get a hold of you?
Okay.
Because we want your brilliance in our lives.
Thank you. My website is Melissa M. Shepard. And Shepherd as in the dude with the sheep. Because there are so many Shepherd spellings. So melissamshepard.com.
Mm-hmm.
And all of what I am happy to offer is found there.
Perfect.
Including resources that I hope could be helpful even if we never met. And the books are there. They're on Amazon, but they're also there. And so I am open. I'm open.
Yes.
This is a delicious journey in my life.
Yes. Yes. This woman is brilliant. Like I said, she is, I'm going to say it again. She's a hero of mine. She has helped me through so many things, especially consultations with clients. She talks me off of walls all the time. So she can talk you off a wall too. If you need that level of support,
my goodness,
please reach out to her. Please buy her books. Please reach out for a consultation paid consultation or her services. Yes, we should do this again.
We should. You and I can talk for hours.
I know.
And I love that.
Yes.
And I love seeing your face live.
Thank you. I know. You too. I love people. I love this giggle. That's why I would go stand in her door frame. And I would try to come up with the silliest things I could do. Just like it. Right? Listen to the beauty of that giggle. Oh my God.
I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Oh
my goodness. Thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's rich.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you leapt.
Yes, me too. Because we get to have a day like this.
Yes.
All right, listeners. All right, folks. You got some juicy stuff here. So please replay this so that you can get all of her wisdom and take notes. And thank you for listening, and I'll see you again on another episode of In Service to Love. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. As always, please share, comment, and like so we can grow our community and bring more love to those you love. Great reviews mean a great deal to our work, so take a few minutes and write us a love letter today. Our hearts appreciate every word. Tune in next week for another episode.